Let's pretend this isn't YouTube and we're sitting together in this library and you've just asked me about my personal story from reading books to changing lives. How I went from zero coaching experience to being a trustworthy teacher in difficult and dark and dangerous psychological territory. Because maybe you're considering the same. And maybe, in all honesty, you probably shouldn't do this. It's not something which I recommend for most people. This is not an easy career path. And I'll be more honest. I'll be completely honest with you, and let's just be down to earth for this video. I don't think many coaches and many teachers are very good, because to be a good coach or a good teacher, you need to be the thing itself. And most people are unhealthy, traumatized, and lacking integrity. Therefore, I don't really respect them, and if I don't respect them, I'm not going to give all of my internal world over to them and let them start tinkering around and changing my psychology. Let's be real, it takes so much for someone who's been traumatized to actually trust somebody. If you're going to work in this space, if you're going to actually help people change their lives, realistically, you need to have gone through a hell of a lot of darkness yourself and come out on the other side, and also have spent many months and multiple years actually refining your ability to professionally resolve certain issues. It is not an easy path, and even coaching and qualifications and various certifications from universities or institutions, they are not going to give you the ability nor the confidence, and especially not the character integrity, to actually be good at this work. Little rant aside, I'm definitely going to get a little bit more assertive, but let's just calm it back down. We're sitting in the library together, and I'll bring up today's question to give us a little bit more framing and hopefully dive a little bit deeper. I mean, we will. I'm just going to be honest with you. This is a raw conversation. Today's question. Hey Jordan, I'm curious what made you comfortable to jump from self-healing and reading theory to starting your mentorship program. If you're interested in what my mentorship is, it's the pinned comment. You can read it in your own time. If there were any additional trainings, mentorships, etc. that you completed or received, I'm hoping to build myself towards coaching work with trauma, but I'm unsure how to get there 100%. Traditional psych schooling would be painfully expensive, limited, and slow. I agree. I've had many conversations like this with clients and people on social media who are in postgraduate degrees, and we'll come back to it. Having burning autodidactic passion, but I'm worried that I'd have blind spots and could damage someone badly by doing it all myself. This is the kind of person who, I don't know this individual, I appreciate the question, thank you for asking. That very last line there, I'm worried that I would have blind spots and I would hurt someone if I learnt this myself. That's a very good sign that you're probably meant for this work. If you don't care enough to actually be aware of your own inconsistencies, your lack of ability in one area or another, you shouldn't be working with sensitive topics. You shouldn't even really be giving advice on how to coach someone towards a health, wealth, higher purpose, relationships kind of situation. You need to be aware of your limitations. Being aware of your limitations, being aware that you will not have all the answers, is actually the fundamental, humble foundation for being any form of trustworthy teacher, in my personal opinion. And it's almost a difficult question to answer because, well, let's think about it. The idea of getting a certification, the idea of getting a qualification, the idea of going back to school, the idea of spending however much money and however many years of your life to go into a certain container of education is the idea, or even the promise that you will come out of that container 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later, some of the advanced psychological trainings, 5 to 10 years if you're doing it part-time, extremely long process. But the idea is that when you hop out of that container, you will be qualified. You'll have the ability to heal people or help people. And you will. You'll have learned technical skills, you'll have learned certain modalities, you'll have had some supervision, you've had some training. Good coaching programs lead towards better results. However, fundamentally, there is no qualification. I'm going to say it this way, and it's sensitive because some people loved the qualification that they took. I haven't done any of this. I'm self-taught. I've read hundreds of books and I did my own inner healing work for multiple years. And then I showed up publicly for multiple years being the thing in such a way that when someone watches a video of mine, and maybe you've already seen me before, and they're like, huh, that guy knows his stuff and he seems to have experienced some of it firsthand. Oh, I might end up trusting this person. That's a warm human process. The idea of coaching as a certification, as a qualification, it's so... I don't want to take a massive dump on the industry, but I will be as honest to say that it's wishful thinking to believe that you can go into any form of educational container and have all of your blind spots removed or be bulletproof in your ability to not cause harm to people. Coaching work and healing work and teaching overall is always a human relationship, and human relationships are messy. What are you to do when you're in session with someone who's experienced childhood abuse and there's a moment where they're crying, there's a moment where they're breaking down with you, and you've got 10 different modalities in your head and 3 different therapeutic responses? How do you respond correctly? You need clinical intuition. You need an ability to have that intuitive, heart-based connection, and that, I will say it, I don't think that can be taught. I don't think it can. I think there is something to be said for the natural teacher or the natural healer. If you've got that heart of healing, that healing heart, that warm, passionate desire to make a difference and be there for someone who's in pain, because realistically, you've gone through your own pain. No great therapist that I've ever read in this library, hundreds and hundreds of books, hasn't been through their own traumatic story at one point or another. It takes pain to know pain, and to know pain, you then have the possibility of healing pain. Doesn't mean that when I've worked with someone who's experienced a certain type of assault or abuse that I haven't experienced, or a certain type of addiction to a certain particular thing, a particular substance that I've never tried, doesn't mean I need to go and take that substance or go and experience that trauma, but you need to have a central experiential anchoring towards something which is dark so that you can relate. I'm not interested in someone who's got a 5-year qualification who grew up in a healthy, happy, wonderfully stable household to help me work through my own family dysfunction. It's not inspiring. It doesn't feel real. It feels disconnected. A lot that goes on in the traditional therapy space feels disconnected and distant. It's not alive. There's not a real person there. There's a series of scripts and procedures, and I'm generalizing, I'm stereotyping, but you get what I'm saying. The reason that I stepped into the space, the reason that I've decided to make my job, my work, my profession, my career, my calling, is that I couldn't do anything else. Realistically, I had so much that I needed to work through. I learned so much, and eventually it got to a moment where I was like, I'm pretty healed now. Where do I take it? Oh yeah, for the last decade plus, in every single social situation, the majority of friendships that I've been in, even in my family environment, I was the therapist in the room. And although I didn't formally train in therapeutic skills, surprise, surprise, if you're autodidactic, as this questioner says they are, you have the ability to read books, take principles, and learn the particular modalities. But you need that relatable core. You need to have an experience of pain, having worked through the pain, and then have the confidence to know that you could help other people work through the pain. There's some qualifications that could be useful if you want to go down a particular modality and it's a highly specialized form of working with people and you want to specialize down and niche in. That's a whole nother conversation. I support that. I think that we should have professional qualification when professional qualification is something which will truly allow for the best outcomes. But the overall big picture perspective on how to go from no coaching to being very good at coaching, or no therapeutic work to being very good at therapeutic work, is to be living this experience every single day and be committed to this process for multiple years. You can tell, if you've watched my videos before, you can tell that I live in this library and that I have devoted my life to this work as far as I can see it. It's obvious. You can't read 2, 3, 4 books per week for 4, 5 years. You just can't maintain that pace unless you actually care. And it takes that desire, that strong desire to make a difference, to actually make a difference. You will always have blind spots. You'll always have blind spots. You'll never be able to perfectly resolve all client issues. And the honest reality is that even if you jump into the educational container and the promise is that 5 years from now, you'll have your nice PhD and the ability to work with clients professionally and you'll all be certified, you will still be in the moment, in the session, with the clients breaking down, and you might not immediately know what to do. Because that's life. Life is not knowing what to do, in the same way that a doctor in a trauma wing has a certain type of person come through and they've got a bleeding wound in a certain place and it's kind of technical and kind of difficult. There's a variety of options and they don't know for certain. They're going to have blind spots. We can't avoid that. The game of life, the experience of being here, involves blind spots. And if you have the humility to know where you do have at least some major blind spots, i.e., okay, I haven't even read 100 books on this topic, I should probably read 100 books around trauma therapy, around coaching, around teaching, to really refine myself at a baseline. Come on, like 1 book per week for 2 years. That's what you'd expect if you're going to train yourself. 1 book might not be enough, maybe 2 books per week for 1 year. There you go, you've read 100 books. That's more than most qualifications ever ask you to do, even university level. University level, postgraduate, you're not going to be reading 2 books per week. And in my mentorships, the typical client reading rate, I don't just work with coaches and therapists. I'm not a coach who coaches coaches to coach coaches kind of person, but it is around 50 to 60% of the people I do work with are personal trainers, healers, teachers, people working in the helping professions in coaching or mentoring or facilitating in one way or another. And the other percentage is people who want personal therapeutic work and intervention and coaching things, right? The people who I'm working with who have that 50, 60%, they want to be coaches or be better coaches, and then I'm in the supervisory role, I push them very hard. Because if you're not reading 2 books per week, if you're not setting aside an hour and a half, 2 hours per day to continually refine your own educational capacity, your ability to actually be able to help, and you're not willing to put in the effort for at least the 4 months that we're working together, maybe you shouldn't be in this industry. Maybe you don't want to do this, and that's completely fine. It's not all about reading, but reading is a litmus test for commitment. If you're devoted enough to set aside 90 minutes to 2 hours per day, in the morning, in the evening, split it up, break it down, if you can't find that time, how can I trust you to show up for me if I have a psychological break? If something happens in my life and I'm your client, I'm Mr. Client, and you're the teacher or the therapist or the coach, something dreadful happens in my life, and you don't even show up for the reading in preparation. Just pay attention to these moments. If you're not actually committed to doing the hard work consistently for multiple years to be able to be in a position where you could really show up for people who are in pain, then don't enter this industry. Or at the very least, go into one of those educational containers and have more of a facilitated, supported curriculums given to you. You don't have to go and search bibliographies. You don't have to do it all yourself. Go into one of those formal containers. It will help. Certain people need that kind of strong support. They want that multi-year degree. But even within that degree, you still need the ability to show up and do the work for yourself. You need to have healed yourself to a significant enough degree before even considering helping other people to heal their trauma. That takes multiple years. It's a long process. Just be wary of where the pitfalls might be. And usually it's our own work ethic. Usually it's our own blind spots, the blind spots regarding our own level of enlightenment or levels of wisdom. Just being honest and being humble. It's why this entire YouTube channel is built around the books from people who know more than me and incredible men and women who've come before me that I can lift up and learn from. I don't think I have all the answers, and also that energy, if you really want to highlight, if you're a coach or a therapist, right? If you want high-level empathic rapport with your client, to admit that you don't have all the answers, which is something I do from the very first interview, the very first coffee chat moment before we'd even agreed to work together. I make a real point to say this. If there's anything I say at any point in this mentorship which feels really off to you, or just like a boundary betrayal, something which was too assertive or too avoidant, call me out on it as immediately as you can possibly recognize. Because I'm human, I sometimes make mistakes, and it's my responsibility to join you in that space and repair as quickly as possible. Hopefully, God willing, there won't be many moments like this, but if there is, I'm not the boss, you're not the student. It's not like I'm going to tell you what to do. Just let me have those opportunities to repair if I've misstepped. And of course, with education and with skill and with multiple years of experience, the missteps become fewer and fewer. But even repairing within a relational context, that can be healing in itself. For a client to be able to say, hey, actually, Jordan, the way that you said that, like, I know it came from a loving place, but this is my typical thing. Like, I know it came from a loving place, but you're a bit too hard. You're a bit too direct with that. And that felt unsafe for me. And I'm like, whoa, yeah, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean it that way. How can I make this better? Simple, super simple. But my ability to see that, I had a blind spot. I went off in the wrong direction. I was miscalibrating that moment. 9 other moments, that was the right response. This one moment, this 1 out of 10, didn't work. I repair, I drop my ego. Not literally, of course, psychologically, you can't ever drop your ego unless you want to go into non-dual. We'll leave that for now. I metaphorically drop my ego and have the ability to respond in the coaching space. I think it's the end of the video. The point is, put in the work. How do you know you're meant for this? You have the ability to continually immerse yourself in this for at least 6 months, at least 12 months. You have the ability, the interest, the passion, and the devotion to show up for the basic things that would put you in a position where you would be useful for other people. I haven't gone into the situation of how to structure the business end. You can YouTube search how to start a coaching business. You can look at all the technical elements. It is learnable. But don't go down that rabbit hole. Don't start looking for solutions and systems and structures unless you've got contact with the soul of this work. Because you will burn out, it will backfire, and then you're also, realistically, in the highest probability cases, going to then hurt someone else. If you don't have the soul in this business, if you don't have that intuitive feeling of something's happening here that's beyond words and I'm in touch with it, and you bring that into the space, you're not going to be very good at this work, or you might be very good, but just for a very limited period of time, because you will burn out and it's not meant for everyone. It's a very discouraging video in many ways, and hopefully that is my lasting contribution to the space, that taste on your tongue of, maybe I shouldn't do this. But then for some people, they'll want to do it even more. In which case, I salute you, and you better get reading 2 or 3 books per week for the next few years, because that's how you become world class. And of course, apply it and do the general healing things. You get the point. I'll see you on the next video. It's over here.